Hmm.
I mean, he was good, you know. Um, but
Especially
as
in.
Johnny Cage,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
I
No,
was
you're good.
I was just gonna say, especially when it comes to movies, it feels like actors want to get that one scene with them in the suit, but with their face showing. Like Spider-Man always has a shot with him without the mask, but in the suit. So the fact that
Right.
Carl Urban just always kept the helmet on was very true to his character.
Which is great because you got to separate actor from character if you're in that kind of a role, you know? And some
Exactly.
actors, more often than not, can't do that. They have to show their face. And that's just unfortunate, you know? Because they're still going to get credited for the movie and they still get their money. They don't have to be that way. But anyway, we're getting a little sidetracked. So when it comes to Carl Urban, the reason why I don't like him as Johnny Cage per se is because he that feels more like a Kano casting. It was a little off, right? I mean, even with his face shaven, um, they're going with more seasoned Johnny, and I get that, right? But he just doesn't scream Johnny to me. He doesn't have that aura, that vibe, you know? Even as a seasoned one, I just think it's kind of a miscast.
I see. Okay. I mean, in that case, is there someone that you would cast for Johnny?
There's plenty. I mean, there's actually quite a bit of actors that could have done it. And I know people were clamoring about The Miz being Johnny, and I get it. He fits the bill, I know. But I mean, I wouldn't even really per se go with him either. I mean, you could, it'd be a lot better, but nah. My first choice when I think of someone like Johnny Cage,
Mm-hmm.
man, let me think.
Because
Mm,
personally, I I mean, I'm someone that is an advocate for the
oh,
Miz being Johnny Cage. I think that would have been for me. I
yeah.
mean,
Okay.
because I'm a fan of that wrestler, so I would like the idea of the Miz being Johnny Cage. But I'm I I do realize that there are a bunch of other people that would also do a good job as Johnny.
Yeah. I actually remembered who I would have casted for Johnny Cage.
Hmm.
Um, and I think I forgot it because in the middle of the conversation.
Oh, my fault. I'm sure.
It just reached and then it left. Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, so you know that actor that played Stifler in American Pie?
Oh yeah, 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 yeah.
Perfect. He's older now. He's a little seasoned looking, but he learned martial arts quite a bit for a lot of his more action roles he tried to get. He was trying to branch out away from comedy movies, you know,
Oh,
and he did stuff like Bulletproof Monk and the Lethal Weapon reboot TV show, and
did
he
he?
actually did a lot of his own stunts. Yeah, yeah, it just flopped because people weren't ready for a Lethal Weapon reboot, I think.
Huh. Yeah, I didn't even know that he was into anything action related.
But hear me out, dude. This is the most fun thing about it, right? He's an older seasoned actor. He's always been like a B-lister, right? He never gets a leg up and leaving the comedy roles. He's always wanted to. He knows real martial arts. That's Johnny Cage, bro. Wash up actor.
Oh,
Boom.
that's a great point. And he's trying to kind of prove himself as a fighter, I suppose. So yeah, that is kind of Johnny
And
Cage.
he would literally fit that bill well. He probably would take a lot of personal, feelings about it and put it into his acting, and I think it would be wonderful. So that's who I would pick. And there's still plenty of others, I'm sure, that I can't really name right now at the moment.
Hmm.
But there's a lot of actors that have that aura,
Yeah,
young and old.
yeah, and it's
I mean,
not
there's
like
probably
he.
some newer actors.
Oh
Go ahead.
yeah, yeah, like maybe just some no-name actor that just kind of looks like him and can do the moves. I'm always an
Oh
advocate
yeah,
of that
even the
too.
guy who did Mortal Kombat. Oh, sorry.
No, no, no. Go ahead.
Even the guy who did Mortal Kombat Legacies, Johnny Cage in season two, the guy who used to be in Starship Troopers, perfect. He was wonderful.
So correct me if I'm wrong. Did they recast him in season two, or is that the same guy?
Yeah, recast.
It
Even
was a
the guy they
recast.
cast in the season one was perfect too.
Okay, so you're referring to the second guy. Okay, gotcha, gotcha. But yeah, the first guy was pretty good as well.
Yeah, the guy who played the main character in Starship Troopers was in the second season, and he was wonderful as well.
Yeah,
I loved him as
he was
Johnny.
good. That whole
Yeah,
that whole show I feel like was was pretty cool and doesn't really get its due, I feel. It,
But that's because I think they made too many mistakes in season two. Um, they kind of blew their money on wanting Tagawa in second season, and then they had no funding left to do more seasons, and that's why we never got anything. They kind of went a little too big in season two with the recasts and into bigger named actors and the better VFX and everything. And then, oh no, we have no funding now, you know?
is that why the show ended? Is it because they didn't have funding?
As far as I know, from what I've seen and heard, yeah. It's because they ran out of funding because they blew it all on having bigger names in season two. And that really sucks because the story was interesting. The acting was wonderful. It just got better over time. You know, it progressed wonderfully. I just think, like, yeah, Tagawa was cool, but was it worth it to not have more episodes? You know?
Hmm.
I mean, they budget cutted other people like Johnny Cage. It's the reason why they had a different actor because he was cheaper because they were trying to make room to have Tagawa. And it's like, man, don't work your show around having this one cameo. Just tell your story, you know? Tell your art.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose what they were going for was perhaps having that would legitimize the show and more people would watch. I don't know what they were thinking, but and it's a shame too
No,
because
no, I mean, it's
I really
Tagawa.
liked the Shang Tsung scene, especially in the restaurant.
Right. And it still could have been just as good with the first guy in the season one. It was a younger looking Shang Tsung. It could have been fine. Everyone loves Mortal Kombat Legacy, not Legacy, Conquest Shang Tsung.
Yes,
And he was pretty great.
I feel like he doesn't
What's
get
that?
his due either. I feel like he's great,
No.
and a lot of people don't. A lot of people don't give him his flowers. Same with the Conquest Shao Kahn.
Dude, his presence was phenomenal.
Yeah, absolutely fantastic.
The power that he wielded just by sitting in a throne, standing up, the hand gestures, the mouth movements, the way he stared into people's eyes and like said things with ferocity, that just screams
What's
Shao
going on,
Kahn,
support? And Chloe, how you guys doing? Yeah, man,
honestly.
it was absolutely phenomenal. And then the fact that he played two roles that didn't I mean like as a kid watching it I didn't realize that it was the same actor, so he had to have been doing something right.
Right?
What'd you say?
I said right.
Yeah, oh yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, but man, Conquest. Other than I feel like some of the fight scenes in Conquest kind of annoy me, but other than the fight scenes, that show was great. Like I feel like it was similar to Annihilation, where there were overly focused on flips and stuff, and I don't know, it just didn't really have the grit that I would like in a Mortal Kombat fight scene. But other than that, that show was phenomenal.
I hear you. Honestly, it still I still think it did the job perfectly fine, though. It fits in that universe beautifully. But I hear what you're saying. Sometimes there was just way too many flips. Honestly, if you tried to play a drinking game where you drink every time they do a kick, you would be dead.
Yeah, it's just
You
so
would be dead,
much.
sir.
Uh huh.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
But I mean, not that
But
they were bad. It's just a nitpick of mine. But the show was great. Don't get me wrong.
oh no, I know, I understand. I'm actually a real big advocate of criticizing, but fairly. You know, like I don't consider it an insult to the show or anything like that. I understand the difference. You know.
Hmm.
Um, For sure. I mean,
I'm
honestly, with
doing
the
well,
martial arts
support.
in
How about
that show,
yourself? How
though,
you
it was
doing
very
today?
impressive for what it was. They definitely did the right thing and got the right, vibe down, I think.
I agree, and it's a shame that it ended on a cliffhanger. I remember watching it, and I was like, my jaw was on the ground when I saw the ending. Um, I don't know if this is a spoiler, but the The ending completely shocked me. It wasn't supposed to be the ending of the show, but I think they also, maybe they just didn't have the ratings. I don't know what the reasoning was for that show not continuing, but they were planning a third season that they never got.
Yeah. It's kind of in the air. It's speculation, really. But I mean, honestly, though, I wasn't too shocked because as an MK fan, I know for a fact that Kung Lao's journey will never end in positivity. He does
What?
die by Goro.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Eventually, he would have died by Goro. Yes, exactly.
So eventually we would have still seen him fall. You know what I mean? We'd be rooting for him the whole time. We would have been invested in it. And then he would go to his last tournament and die,
Hmm.
and we would be like, no.
Unless, of course, they didn't. Unless, of course, they just end it with him entering the tournament, and then it's just like
Yeah.
you can pick up. You know what's gonna happen next.
Right, but that show was bold, and they always showed the dark parts of Mortal Kombat in that TV show, and I thank them
That's a
for
good
that every
point.
day because Mortal Kombat kind of
Hey,
needs to be
Secret, how you
dark
doing, Secret?
and gritty fantasy, you know, and having a messed up ending like Shao Kahn winning in a ancient Kung Lao story kind of is necessary.
Yeah, yeah. It for it
Because
to
we all
line
know,
up, it has to happen.
because we all know Liu Kang is the one who actually ends their reign of, conquest,
Yeah,
which doesn't happen after his death until a couple of hundred years or so. So I mean,
yeah, yeah. It goes because I mean, we don't really know anything before Kung Lao. We just know that Kung Lao won, but then eventually loses to Goro, and then the nine victories happen.
right. I also like the fact that Master Cho and Conquest is the like concept of Bo' Rai Cho.
Of Boraicho, yeah, yeah, that's cool.
Like he's the reason Bo' Rai Cho exists later because he predates the character in a roster, you know?
Oh, absolutely, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, like he showed up in the TV show first as just Master Cho.
I
So
agree. I agree.
actually, a lot of those concepts were carried over into the games later, even nowadays. So like you remember Kriya from Mortal Kombat Conquest, right?
I don't remember that character. Can you remind me?
Yeah, of course. She was like a barbarian kind of queen that had a bunch of other like Amazoness kind of warrior women.
Hmm.
They were all women, and she needed to like, you know, mate with strong warriors to have more warriors. But when she did this, she didn't tell them that they would die.
Hmm.
And because she's actually secretly some kind of like creepy insect thing,
I haven't
but
seen
but
that
like it
support,
never
not yet.
shows that she is. It just alludes to it, especially whenever Kung Lao finds her hive, and it's a big like beehive thing where babies are inside of
Oh, so
by
similar
the
to
thousands.
Devora. Okay.
Yes, she was the first concept for Devora, I think, because like it just makes sense, like because later on we do get that, but in more depth and actually outwardly insectoid.
Right.
So
That's
I mean,
interesting.
even like that still alluded later on to someone like Devora, like decade or so later, which is crazy.
Hmm. To be fair, I
But you
feel
also
like.
got to think.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you first.
I was just gonna say, I feel like the MK team takes a lot of inspiration from like the movies and stuff like that. I was just gonna bring up some movie stuff, but before I do, continue with your point.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, Ed Boon was closely working with that TV show, and he is really good about taking concepts that he abandoned in the past and refurbishing them later or reusing a lot of assets.
Yep.
And Kung Lao was horrified about the fact she created hives with babies in them and that they would grow to adulthood in a couple of days. So I just kind of feel like that sounds like Devora. So
Oh yeah, 100%.
because like if a human being mates with like someone like Devora, of course they would die. So why
Oh
would you
yeah.
die if she's normal? I just think they didn't have I don't think they had the budget to make her look like an insect queen back then. So they
Yeah,
went with
yeah.
Amazon instead.
Oh yeah, you can tell
And
that that show
also,
was not did not have a very large budget. The special effects weren't that
no, but
great.
they still spread it out better than Mortal Kombat Legacy though.
Yeah, point taken.
uh, yeah. But
I've been
another
wanting to
fun thing I'll
watch
bring up before you
That
bring up your
Spider-Man
point
cartoon.
is so another thing that really got me thinking about, damn, that
Devora's
must have been
mother.
the reason why Devora exists, is because Reptile. So in Conquest, Reptile actually becomes like her king, and he says, "We'll unite, and I'll give you powerful armies." And he goes, "Oh, and don't worry, I'm not gonna die like the others. I know about that." And what's funny about that is Reptile and Devora, in one of the latter
What's
endings
going
later
on,
on in the
Corey?
games, she uses his species to actually create
Existence.
like an army because they can survive the process. So that was even a thing back then and now. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Interesting. I don't.
So,
Man, there's so many stuff I forgot about that show. Like, I do remember Reptile's race was still around, and there were like a whole bunch of them. There was but I
mhm.
think they had like the the front part of their masks were just like a little different, if I remember correctly. That's the only way you could really distinguish who was Sizoth, even though I don't know if they ever called him Sizoth in that series.
um, so a funny thing is, I think I know why you think that. It's the same mask, but everyone's face was a different shape and size. So the mask looked different on
the
people because of like stature.
I thought okay, maybe I'm just remembering it wrong, but I thought like the teeth were different. Like I know they all had the open mouth with the teeth for the mask, but I thought maybe
No,
the
it's
the
all the
teeth
same.
look different, but they're all the same. Okay.
Yeah, but Reptile, he's actually got a darker green tunic. Everyone else has a light green.
I see. I
There's like a difference of shade.
Yeah, I wish they would have distinguished that more, but again, I'm pretty sure the budget didn't really allow for much variance.
No, but how I figured it was because of the shape, though, or at least the shape of their face, is because there's this one guy in the background of one of the episodes where the nose part of his mask was on his forehead because his face was so smoosh. Because he's got a tiny face.
Because he has a tiny face.
Yeah, but they all were one size, one fit kind of masks, because
I see.
budget.
Hmm.
Yeah. You said that they were still alive. Yeah, that's another point. Which I could talk a lot about a lot of different MK stuff, so I apologize.
Oh, no need to apologize
But
at
man,
all.
dude, that reminds me, not only would we have seen Kung Lao die, we eventually would have seen Reptile's betrayal to Shao Kahn actually come to fruition and him know it and him murder his species. Because if you think about it, every kind of canon continuity, especially the original arcade, because that's what they'd be going off of back then. Um,
Yeah.
you know, Reptile was like his only person from his race. Like he was the only one left.
Right,
And
right.
and usually in his latter ending, it was because he found out Shao Kahn killed them to keep him obedient and lied to him by saying he only enslaved them and then, like he'll free them or whatever if he succeeds. So like we would have seen the mass destruction of his people because he was betraying Shao Kahn with Kriya.
Hmm.
We would have watched the origin of Reptile becoming a lone lizard,
Yeah.
which would have been honestly kind of cool but depressing.
I guess depending on how much you like the character will determine how depressing that would be.
Fair enough, fair enough. Now, do you have any points? I'm sorry, I've been kind of
Oh no, no, not at all.
taking the stage.
That's been great. I was just saying that so I'm live streaming and someone in this chat just said something about Reptile. They only called him by his real name until MKX. It was always just Reptile. Was it MKX that did that?
Which one came first, MKX or the movie, the reboot movie?
Oh, definitely MKX came before the reboot.
Then yeah, I'm pretty sure it was either MKX or 9. Yeah, right around that time. He's right. or
Hmm.
he or she
Yeah, yeah,
or
okay.
them.
Go to that. Good point. Um, okay. So, yeah, because I don't remember them ever calling him by Sizoth in Conquest. But man, so another thing that kind of confused me, and maybe I need to go back and watch the series now that I'm thinking about it. But there were a couple episodes where Sub Zero's in it, Scorpion and Sub Zero, and I don't remember
Yeah.
if they ever distinguish who that Sub Zero is, because Scorpion has his
Okay.
powers, so it has to have been Bihan that killed
It's
him.
yeah,
But this
yeah,
is
it's
in the
beyond.
time. But this is
So,
the time of Great Kung Lao. So how do they round that circle?
oh yeah, so Mortal Kombat likes to make people really old. I mean, even in the movie, with it's supposed to be the same continuity, Kitana, she's over like 10,000 years old. So like,
Hmm.
they always find a way for certain characters to outlive the human lifespan, and Sub-Zero is no different. So back then, Sub-Zero actually was a like a half American kind of character. That's why he looked like a white guy. Uh, because he was stolen from his actual family by the Lin Kuei and trained. Like he wasn't like, you know what I mean? Not only was he half Asian, but he also was stolen from like a regular family and trained to be an assassin because that's what they did back then, especially in Conquest. And his cryomancy is what keeps him preserved and alive for a long time. Basically, like Ed Boon just kind of rambled about how like Sub Zero lives for generations because of his people and his power or whatever.
That
So,
hmm,
um,
odd.
but it is Bihan because Kuai Lang shows up in Annihilation, his little brother.
Yeah, yeah, he's in Annihilation, but I mean, that timing makes sense. But for
Yeah, he just
Conquest,
lives a long
it
time.
absolutely doesn't make sense. Unless,
Yeah, I mean, what's up?
unless, I mean, I guess this explanation kind of explains it. But I always thought it was weird to have Sub Zero alive in Kung Lao's time.
Right. I mean, it's his powers basically. They just keep him alive
Hmm.
for a long time. I mean, it worked that way even in the games. I mean, he's been around for a while.
Has it? I don't really recall anything showing in the games that he's been around longer than a regular human's lifespan.
He's still around long enough for Scorpion to hate him and still be long dead. And Scorpion's supposed to be like what, feudal era?
Is he? I don't know about that.
Yeah, as far as I know. I mean, every content with Mortal Kombat, it always shows him living in more of a feudal era kind of style, like time era, whenever he's
Hmm.
alive. And then their feud usually happens around that time with Bihan, and he's definitely there every time. I mean, whether it was Quan Chi or not, he still takes the form of Bihan every time if it is him in that continuity, you know.
Hmm. I
So I mean, it's just not very well explained, I think, because Ed Boon is also the king of saying something and then never elaborating. Yeah, it's supposed to be Bihan. It's supposed to be
Bihana
Bihan
Sub
because that's
Zero
when
is
they
a poo
finally
poo
hate
head.
each other. That's how the feud in the movie era starts. It's because
Do you
they
see
don't get
me, Corey?
along.
I see you.
They get both
Yes.
us on the same mission. Scorpion kind of kills Sub Zero's actual like sister
Japanese
from
Amish.
his family he got taken away from, and he figures out that that's his family, so he kills one of Scorpion's people, and then they just feud ever since.
Hmm. I'm trying to remember.
They,
I know in the reboot movie we definitely see Scorpion, like his village does look very feudal era.
feudal era, yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
Sub Zero's alive then, so yeah, that kind of tracks. And I mean, I guess other than that, it it could be true. We don't see anything um disputing that point, so yeah, okay.
I mean, even in Mortal Kombat 9, whenever Quan Chi's showing the vision
Secret combatant,
of the
have a good
memory
night.
of
Thank you for
like
stopping
Sub-Zero
by.
killing his people, like his
Appreciate it.
family, right? It's still very feudal era. I mean, Sub-Zero was even riding like on a horse, and storming like a very old-looking Japanese house in that little scene. So, as far as I know, everything always points to feudal era, unless like someone can say otherwise somehow.
Yeah, I don't think anyone could really, because we don't really see much of that time. When Scorpion is alive. So yeah,
Yeah.
I guess so. Hmm.
Scorpion's a very old dude, and so Scorpion, so Sub-Zero, and a bunch of other people, really.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, I guess technically all the Outworlders, you could say that they live forever, but I guess the only ones that absolutely wouldn't be would be like special force characters.
Yeah, because like how's Bihan alive and looking the same in the reboot movie as well? Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
weird.
yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. And it's
So
something I
I'm
actually
just gonna,
didn't consider.
yeah, I'm just gonna assume it's because of like what Ed Boon kind of somewhat said at one point, which was like the ice powers keeps him preserved.
Keeps him
And
preserved.
Scorpion, I mean, he's just dead usually. So
Yeah,
there's no age in there.
yeah, exactly.
Um, but even But I know that feud. That's the reason why they hate each other, because he denounces the Lin Kuei after he feuds with Scorpion, and he's actually hunted
Corey
by both.
says, read
That's the
my
last time you see him until the
comments.
movie. And then Shang Tsung even says in the movie that they were deadliest of enemies,
Sonya Blade
the
is dumb
slaves
in
under
this
his
game.
power.
Why are
So
you hating
like
on
they
Sonya?
were just going back at it if Shang Tsung wasn't like mind messing with them.
In the first movie?
So it has to be the same dude. Yeah. So
Hmm.
it has to be the same guy. Because Scorpion doesn't hate anyone else as much as he hates him from Conquest, because that's what starts it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, it's absolutely the same guy.
Um,
Very
I
interesting.
I don't know why. I mean, I kind of know why Nightwolf is alive. It's because spiritualism, but also like it's not the same one every time. I mean, it's kind of been confirmed that with Nightwolf, it's more so it's just that mantle that gets passed, and because they all kind of look very similar, people just kind of always assumed it was the same guy.
Yeah, and I mean also, the Nightwolf that we know, just because he's dressed the way he's dressed, doesn't mean um, that he originates from an older time period. He could be modern day, but I mean, he's wearing jeans.
Oh yeah, I know. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. I mean, that could be like because of the way it was described with him. That could be like the fifth Nightwolf for all we know. He never
Uh,
really tells us like how many Nightwolves were before him or after or anything,
exactly. They
which
ruin.
I like that. There's mystery in that.
Yeah, as far as which Night Wolf it is, I agree. Hold on, someone saying in the movies, Bihan is from Outworld and just as old as Scorpion from ancient times, but in the game lore, Scorpion and Bihan are from modern era, not from the feudal era.
So
What
okay,
what
so
makes you
he's
think
wrong
they're
about the
from
first
modern
one.
era?
So he has to be wrong with the first one. If the Mortal Kombat Conquest is canon to the movie, the first movie, right? Okay. Um, then Conquest definitely shows Bihan not being from Outworld because his family lives in Earthrealm in those episodes. So,
Right. Though I don't remember where it was exactly, but I think maybe it was in some pre-match dialogue where maybe like with Sindel and Sub-Zero, where Sindel says that Sub-Zero's family originates from.
well, if we're talking about the video game, his family does originate from Outworld.
Yeah.
But if we're talking
But
about the
that
movie continuity
right,
with
that's
Conquest
two
and the
different
TV
things.
show,
Hmm.
then it's Earthrealm. Yeah, now as for the video game statement, I doubt it unless it's first timeline. Okay, that might be right when it comes to the very first timeline. You also got to think we've had like what 3 or 4 different timeline continuities by this point.
Yeah, I tend to think of everything as canon, but just a different timeline. So like the cartoon, the movies are probably just all a different
Right.
timeline.
But if we think about just the video games, like with his second point, that might be right with the first timeline because in the first timeline, eventually Sub-Zero and Deception figures out his cryomancy came from Outworld. Um, but if they're talking about second timeline, then no, it is feudal era Japan for sure.
Well,
Um,
well, check this out. He's saying, remember in MK Mythologies, which is canon to the OG games, it takes place after. It takes place after a year. I guess after one. What? It takes place after a year before MK1 tournament, and Bihan and Hanzo both start as humans, and I think that's where Bihan kills Scorpion. No, in Mythologies. Yeah, and that's a year
yeah.
before the first. It's a year before the Shaolin tournament that Shang Tsung had.
Well, the Mythologies has a plot. Well, it doesn't have a plot hole because that's the first timeline. Like I
Yeah,
said, um, I mean, like with the family thing, first timeline makes sense, but that's still kind of like that can be correct. They can just be not super old in the very, very first video games because like Ed Boon, that was the one time he was mostly like vague. He kind of just smacked on some paladin ninjas that were the same and mocapped some people and called it a time. I mean, and gave little brief blurbs on their little bios. So I mean, like, yeah, that could be possible for like the first timeline. Yeah.
yeah, and perhaps just
Um.
the movie and Conquest just have their own timeline in which Sub Zero is
Well,
super
that's
old.
the th- yeah, but it's also MK9 and up as well. If you're considering MK9 through MK11, it's also feudal era because of Quan Chi's vision.
What do you mean?
Like I told you earlier, when Quan Chi shows Scorpion's family dying, the vision
Oh,
he
I
shows you.
see. I mean, just I don't know because they're horses. I mean, people ride horses today in LA. Like I've seen people still kind of ride horses, but the houses do lend to your point. The fact that the houses
Yeah,
look like that.
and,
So I don't
and
know.
the way his family was dressed when they get murdered in that scene and everything. Yeah. Uh, but who knows? Yeah, like I said, first timeline, sure, I'll give him that. Yeah, my first
Tell
timeline
your
probably.
friend
But movie
about how
continuity, MK9 through
MK2 and
11,
Sonya Blade. I mean,
pretty sure they're
oh
pretty
my
old.
god. Well, it's an interesting thought process because I didn't even think to. I just thought that maybe it was just a weird oversight of Conquest, just because they had to kind of have Sub Zero. Like, how are you gonna have a Mortal Kombat anything without Sub Zero? So I figured they just kind of shoehorned him in, but maybe there's something to
I mean,
that.
even Scorpion. I mean, even Scorpion's super old because, like, even if you don't count Sub Zero, right?
Hmm.
In Conquest, Shang Tsung sees this weird scorpion in a cage, and what's her name? The chick that hangs out with him starts with a V.
Vorpax?
Um, Vorpax, thank you. She explains that it's a very ancient soul trapped in a scorpion waiting to be released. So,
Hmm.
I mean, even then, like Scorpion itself, before it takes over Takeda, is still a very old spirit that had already been a vengeful one because of reasons.
Because of reasons.
So, yeah, so the movie continuity definitely is old, and MK9 doesn't really deny nor confirm other than that one little scene I have to go off of.
Hmm.
But if they're trying to say that mythologies is canon no matter what, uh, that's a plot hole.
Hmm.
Unfortunately. But I mean, mythologies, that's what happens. And what I really don't like about some spin offs and like prequel things is they're made without really much thought.
Right, but I mean, I guess it depends on which which prequel would be determined to be not have much thought. Is it Conquest or Mythologies?
Maybe both.
Probably both.
Because Mythologies was made to fit the first timeline only. I don't think they thought ahead far enough to realize they were going to retcon it. You know?
Yeah, and to be fair, they weren't a part of the. I don't think like Tobias and whatnot were in the writers' room for Conquest, so I could see why there would be some conflict there,
Yeah,
even
and
if
with
they
the
worked
with
with
the
it.
video games, and with the video games, it's not like they knew Armageddon was going to happen, or that they knew that they were actually going to do MK9 after Armageddon. So Mythologies was made to only fit the original stuff, for the video games.
Right, right, for the video
Um,
games, and then
so it
led into four. So yeah,
so it probably will conflict with newer timelines like MK9, where it's showing him being like very old.
yeah, and to be fair, well, I guess MK9, even though, so here's the thing with MK9, everything becomes different only at only after the tournament began. So it one could be led to believe that everything before the tournament is the same.
Right, and
Do you
that's
see what I
true.
mean?
Or yeah, because time travel, right? And I get that, but if so, then why make the memory of his family dying be that confusing in the first place?
I don't know.
Like
Maybe these people just
visually.
live in maybe these people just live in huts in the modern day. I mean,
Have you, have you seen Japan in modern day?
that's a great point, actually.
I mean, I'm sure there's some places that look nice and old, like traditional somewhere out there, but I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, why would he still be living that way if he never lived in that era? You know, um,
Yeah,
like
I don't know.
actually, yeah, like why make it look all ancient in that memory, the little thing, the little blurb of reminding him what happened? Like why even have them on horses? Why have like the scenery in the building the way it is, the way they're dressed? Why is he only using a old school katana? Like too many questions. But you know what? You raise a really good point, and I appreciate it. Yeah, technically you're right. So that just makes things a plot hole, sir.
Yeah, I mean, clearly they didn't really think too deeply into that, but oh well.
Fortunately, or it's a design error, I think, on their part, because all they had to do was pay attention to mythologies and realize where they're starting with the timeline thing, time travel wise, but they didn't.
Yeah.
So that's another tricky business about Mortal Kombat is that Ed Boon has made so many, him and Tobias have made so many mistakes over the years, and a lot of other stuff they come out with contradict a lot of other things. So there's so many holes to poke at that it's left for wild discussion.
Hmm. Are are there a lot of? Well, I guess there are some plot holes. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Before I do, though, hold on one second. This guy says the second timeline mentions mythologies as still being canon. Yeah, because Raiden mentions Bihan defeating Quan Chi and Shang Tsung in the Netherrealm and MK9. Yep, yep, I remember that. Fujin fighting and the yeah. Very very true, very true. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
So more likely they just messed up like on like the scene itself then, which can mislead. People. I mean, obviously I get misled by it. You know.
yeah. I mean, it's conflicting. So at the end of the day, it's just whatever needs to be done to get the cool characters into the story.
Right, right.
They're ignoring
Especially
us
now.
tonight. Oh,
Ooh.
Corey, you feel you feel a lack of
But as you were
attention.
saying,
Johnny should have
something
divorced
about
Sonya for being
plow.
unsexy and lame.
Uh, I would say
Ay,
that the
ay,
older
ay.
timeline has less plot holes than like the newer games.
Oh, really? What are some newer plot holes?
A newer game plot hole?
Mm-hmm.
Havoc. So we watched him regenerate like a boss, right?
Okay.
Like constantly, even without like the new Infinity Stone Kamidogu, right?
Okay.
Because it's supposed to be Havoc from like a different world, different universe. It's alluded that it's the Havoc we remember, right? Okay.
It's
And he's got
alluded that what? That the Titan Havoc is the Havoc from the first
Havoc.
timeline?
Yes, because of like it just kind of seems that way. The way he acts is supposed to be, the way he acted. Plus, original timeline Quan Chi was in his arena dying.
I
uh,
mean, I don't know if I agree to him being the original Titan, the original Havoc, but anyway, so continue.
we can just pray he isn't. Honestly, I hope I'm severely wrong in my judgment. So, regardless,
Mm-hmm.
very similar healing factor, right? I
Mm-hmm.
mean, like almost instantaneous. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So why why have Noob Saibot just pull him apart and then just act like he isn't there? Like how did they
Mm,
win? All he did was just chunk him apart. Like he's still intact, like mostly laying there alive,
yeah.
and they just act like he's defeated. They just move on. You never see him in the scene after that. But he was obviously laying there with just with his arms and stuff missing. It's like he can regenerate that. He can
So
just get up.
I have a theory about that. I think
Go on.
I think the Havoc in MK1 can only recover if he inflicts the damage to himself. Like when
I feel like there's.
Mhm.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Like when he rips off his arms and his legs and whatnot, they they regenerate or they create other havocs and whatnot. But I feel that if someone else were to do it for whatever reason, then it doesn't. It just acts like a regular wound.
I feel like there's probably a scene somewhere in the newer game where someone did it to him and he regenerated.
There isn't.
I just,
It's always when he's done it to himself. If
I mean, that might be a solid theory.
Yeah, I mean it's not anything confirmed. It's just like my own personal theory, just based on because I've gone through that story mode a bunch of times, just looking for stuff for content, and I noticed that yeah, every time he regenerates or creates a new, like a doppelganger or whatever, it's because he did it, not because an
Okay.
opponent did it.
But, but he has also the infinite number of the multiverse at his side, right?
Hmm.
Couldn't there just been a version of him somewhere else already there that was fine?
Like another version of him during that fight with Noob.
I mean, out of all the limbs they tore off that grow other hymns the whole time that he was obviously doing to himself, all sorts of stuff. Realistically, do you really think there isn't like just like one that survived somewhere or one from another universe that's
Oh,
literally the same goals?
just another havoc running around out there.
I mean, yeah, they just ignored him after they ripped him apart, which it just doesn't really sit well with me. It's like, okay, like it's Havoc, he's fine. What are you doing? And even if he wasn't fine, like you're saying, technically, because of the kind of plot they were working with, there should have been just another one almost identical to him somewhere else in the same fight.
I hear you, and I think that I mean I wouldn't consider that a plot hole. Like it's not like a contradiction. It's definitely something that maybe doesn't make a lot of sense as far as
Well, most plot holes don't.
most yes
But
plot hole,
also,
but it's kind of a rectangle square thing. Plot holes don't make sense, but not everything that doesn't make sense is technically a plot hole. If that makes any sense.
it has to do with the plot, and it's just I get it. I get what you're saying, though, for sure. I agree. But let's say with your theory, right? It's
Hmm.
still something that's not said or shown.
It's nothing that is said,
There,
correct?
therefore, it's speculation, and we shouldn't have been left with speculation,
The
and that
new
still
timeline is light
kind of
green.
creates a plot hole.
Yeah,
Because
yeah. I mean,
like,
unless they come out with something later stating the way his powers work, um,
but knowing them more likely they won't.
they won't. Right,
No,
right.
so that definitely is a plot hole.
Or
Um,
perhaps his powers are linked to, maybe it's chaotic, where sometimes he's able to heal and sometimes he's not able to heal. Like that's the only thing that I can kind of grasp from that is that I guess his powers are kind of like chaos, where it's random. I don't know. But you're right. They
I
don't
don't
they don't
know.
state anything, so it's just completely left up to speculation.
That's the easiest plot hole to bring up, honestly. Uh, you know,
The
um,
plan for MK was always to have
I
Havoc
mean,
and Dairo be one and the same, because in Deception,
I really don't know if for my health, that I want to focus on the plot holes.
I know for your own mental health. So support
Yeah.
gaming in the chat is saying, I guess he's talking about another plot hole where the plan from MK was to have Havoc and Dairo be one and the same? Question mark. Because in
So
Deception,
I don't think that's a
Dairo.
plot hole.
Hold
Oh,
on
go
a
ahead.
second. Because in Deception, Dairo has a Harakiri that mirrors Havoc breaking his spine. Hmm.
That's wild. But that's not a plot hole because
Hey, are you
Deception is
noticing
the
me?
first
I
timeline.
notice you, Corey. I notice you. I'm sorry, continue.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Hello, Corey. So the first timeline is, yeah, not Dairuk, right? But
Right.
this is the third timeline we're talking about here. This is the timeline where Liu Kang crafted the realms. He crafted his version of paradise. He is the one who chose that. If you think about it, he created every atom, every molecule that exists in that world, right? He even recreated Geras. Okay.
In that
So,
timeline.
yeah. And in
Hmm.
that timeline only is Dairu actually Havoc, one and the same. And that's because that's how Liu Kang did it.
Right,
He
right.
even says in the expansion that he purposefully did things to make sure that his version of Havoc wouldn't end up like the one he remembered.
Correct.
So I think he merged them. Speculation here.
Hmm.
I think he merged them to give Havoc more of a personality and a soul, like something to prevent him from being the way he was. Because
Yeah.
Dairu was a righteous man. He was a realm of order at first. Before he defected, he was always doing what's best. So
Right.
if you merge someone like that with Havoc, you would think it would balance
It
him out. And
balanced
I
him
think
out.
that's where he's getting confused. Is that he's confusing first timeline with third timeline.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that
Because
tracks.
anything before, yeah, because anything before MK1, they weren't merged.
Correct. Yeah, you're right. Because I don't think we even see Dairo at all a second timeline. And yeah, in the first timeline, like you said, they're separate. So that makes sense.
Liu Kang crafted him that way.
Yeah, I think that's the well, it's not even speculation. That is exactly what happened. Liu Kang made them to be that way.
Just like he turned Boraicho into an old lady that runs a tea shop.
So, are you in the camp that Madame Bo is the female Boraicho?
Yes. He altered all of his friends on purpose that whole game.
Yeah.
Like he alluded to the fact he messed with Melina and made sure she would be safe. He did it to Dairu and Havoc. I mean, yeah, he Frankenstein Boraicho into a wholesome old lady.
Yeah, I'm of that thought process as well. That she is just it's this
Just
version's
like
Boraicho.
right, just like Fujin, he turned him into a girl too because
Raiden's
it's
sister.
now Radiant's sister, which is
E-
Fujin.
Even though we don't know for certain, we just know that he has a sister, but we don't know
Oh,
if
a
it's
very good educated guess, my
if a
friend.
guy. I mean, I wouldn't bet against that, but it's not confirmed. But I think you may be right.
But think about it; it's not the first time he's done it. He made Sector a woman on purpose.
He made Sector and Cyrax, women,
Yep.
and then just um shifted Hanzo and Kuai Liang. So he made some changes.
A
We
lot of changes.
Yeah, he made a yes indeed.
I'm actually disappointed in something with MK1, honestly, that should have been explored better.
What's that?
So, on the top of MK1, my friend. All right. So briefly in the storyline, right, we see that Liu Kang crafted the worlds and everything, and he made it to where Shang Tsung had no power at first, right?
Okay.
And Shang Tsung was living a poor, beggar's life. Okay.
It was hard times.
And Liu Kang was fine with it. He knew about it. He knows everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I thought this is what I thought was going to happen. See, I thought that Damashi quotations, right, was going to influence Shang Tsung being like, hey, you know why your life is garbage, right? And it's like, what do you mean? It's like, oh, this guy, like he's the reason why your life sucks.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of did that, sort of, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I thought that's why Shang Tsung would be a threat, why he would learn sorcery, why he would go against the creator himself of that world. Like, I thought it was going to be an arc of justifiable anger. Like, he was going to be like, you made my life hell. You will pay. You know what I mean? Like, Shang Tsung was going to be the one to like, fight Liu Kang because of justifiable reasons. It would have made sense. It would have been very impactful. It would have been dramatic and tragic, right? Finally, Shang Tsung, not only is he evil, but he's evil because of Liu Kang's, you know, um, bias against certain people, right? Because all of his friends are thriving, but if you're not his friend, they're not thriving at all.
Mm-hmm.
So who is the villain here, right? I thought that's what they were going to do. That sounds awesome, right? But no, in the end, they don't focus on that hardly at all, and it's overshadowed by other Shang Tsung, who's actually Damashi and already evil. Cause yeah, so other Shang Tsung that was having a hard life just allies with Liu Kang because himself is a dick.
Yeah, I mean,
It's
I was gonna say they did kind of do what you mentioned. It just wasn't he just wasn't the main, and like that story wasn't the main. He wasn't the main antagonist. Um,
very underutilized possibility.
yeah, and I feel that way about mo- pretty much all the villains in MK1. I feel like the Shao Kahn or the General Shao character is underutilized. I feel even Rain was underutilized. Where there's a lot of interesting places they could go with those characters, but they all take a
Yes,
sideline to other timeline Shang Tsung.
dude, for real. Like, there's so much impactful thing they could have leaned into
Yeah.
and questions what it means to be the god of time and protector of things. And Liu Kang would be at the center of it because he would be suffering for his mistakes. Just like Raiden back in the day when he had to make tough choices and he was biased and it backfired on him.
Mm-hmm.
It would be a really cool, impactful moment for Liu Kang as well, where he would actually like learn from his mistakes and try to grow as a god, as like a god. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um,
I.
he'd be like, "Wow, what I do matters more than I thought." You know?
Mm-hmm. I agree,
But
and
nobody's mad at.
they
Oh,
could have.
sorry.
I mean, there. I feel like there's a yeah, like you said, there's a lot of great places they could have gone, and to be honest, the story for me wasn't. The story was pretty good up until the reveal of Shang Tsung. Actually, the I would have been okay with other timeline Shang Tsung. It's when the multiple timelines came in where I was like, okay, this is going a tad bit too far now.
Dude, they crammed the origin of Mortal Kombat, the Deadly Alliance arc, and Armageddon, all
Armageddon.
of
Yeah.
the first timeline. They crammed the first timeline of 9 games of world building in one game,
Hmm.
which was not a good idea. But dude, the way I'm talking about though, they could have made multiple games out of all of those possibilities that even you mentioned on top of what I said. There could have been elaborate and awesome drama, for more than one game, like spanning just like the other timelines, like the way it used to be. Like they could have leaned into the world they built and took their time and made things matter, right? But that'd be too easy, I guess. They gotta up themselves on disappointment.
And I mean, one could surmise that perhaps they are going to do that with future games, and maybe one of these plot points will you know show up in future games. The only thing is that if what would have I guess given me more trust in that would be if the why can't I think of the words, the expansion had something to do with it. So maybe if the expansion wasn't Havoc, if it was like General Shao was the main bad guy, or if it was Shang Tsung and Quan Chi, they're still running around free, or um
You're gonna hate me. I think most people are gonna hate me in your live right now.
all right, let's hear it.
The reason why I brought that up as well is because I think that Liu Kang should have been a villain for the first game.
The Fire God Liu Kang should have been a villain.
Call me crazy, but yeah.
Okay, I gotta hear this. What? How would you have done this?
Well, like I said, so Liu Kang obviously infected and impacted everyone's lives from what it used to be, right? And people learned this, correct?
Okay.
But they weren't mad at him when they should have been. None of them, they just brush it off and move on because there's a bigger crisis. They don't hold him accountable for his decisions. They just go with it, which I think is unrealistic. You know, someone like Shang Tsung, like I said, would definitely look at Liu Kang as a villain. In his eyes, in that moment, he's like, I only have a horrible life because of you, right? He's not even a bad guy in that timeline at all. He had a so the lesson Liu Kang needed to learn as a villain, and is like without being meaning to be a villain, is like you shouldn't affect people's lives. Everyone should have a neutral chance. Like that's more fair and in tune with peace than just being biased. That's kind of like awful to do to somebody. You know what I mean? Especially when they don't even remember why you hate them in the first place. So Liu Kang should have been the antagonist because of his decisions and him getting angry at people for questioning his decisions, because he actually is shown to be, not only is he biased, he's very judgmental. He holds things against people that they don't even remember, and so on and so forth. Liu Kang, he's kind of a flawed god that's going off of emotions. He's actually not thinking about it from an objective point of view, or as like something he should, in my opinion. He's just kind of doing what he wants and nobody's questioning him all of him game one. And when they do, it's not brushed more upon or no one gets upset. They just kind of move on with the most vague answers from him. Like, there's this one scene where they're like, were you ever going to tell us that you were our creator? And he was like, no. And they just ignore that and go on. They're not like upset that he was going to withhold this information. Nothing.
I mean, okay,
You know
so
what I mean?
I disagree. Let me
Okay.
tell you what I disagree
Counterpoint.
about. Okay, so for one, well, I think your idea sounds dope. I'm not saying that that's not a cool idea to do for a story. What I disagree with is, I feel like some characters were upset about Liu Kang, specifically Shao and Shang were, I mean, like you said, they were kind of in the middle of a crisis, so they couldn't really have a discussion about it. But in some of the dialogue, you can tell that Shang is upset about what Liu Kang has done to his life, and absolutely General Shao is upset about Liu Kang, even before he found out he hated Liu Kang. But one thing, and maybe I need to re-watch it, but I believe in the beginning of MK1, like the opening story crawl where Liu Kang is talking about starting the new era, I think he mentions that he's done other universes, and no. This was the first of his design. I think they mentioned that. So never mind. That point doesn't hold. But the I feel like there are characters that are upset with him. Is what I'm trying to say.
And if they are, it's not the focal point, nor is it really explored that often.
It
And I think it should
isn't.
have been.
You're right about that.
And I think people should have risen up against Liu Kang and fought him, not only just to kill him, like some would want to kill him, some would want to save him from himself, right? He would kind of be like a god that thinks he's always right, right? And that's always a really cool story to see. And to watch Liu Kang learn from this would be great because you don't have to murder him for him to finally see he's wrong. Because even Geras in the trailers and in some areas of the scenes, Geras also was looking at Liu Kang with questionable like intent. He's like, "Hey, are you sure about that?" Or I don't know. I don't think that like Gears has always been there to advise him, right? And if I'm pretty sure I'm right. I can't really quote him for sure, but a lot of the times I saw Geras kind of like looking like at Liu Kang like he should have made a different decision. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or he mentions that Liu Kang's biased is definitely a reason why certain events are happening. You know?
Hmm.
Because, I mean, it is definitely apparent and fact that only people close to Liu Kang are thriving in that universe for the most part.
Hmm. Perhaps.
I mean, Quan Chi, for instance, Quan Chi and Shang Tsung probably would not have ended up the way they were if he didn't meddle with their lives in a negative way.
I don't know if I agree with that. I mean, Shang Tsung was out here selling snake oil to people and having their
To
daughters die.
survive.
I mean, he could have
To
been.
survive.
He could have. You don't have to cheat people to survive. He could have just been a regular merchant. He could have been a cook, or he could have like he did not. He wasn't forced to cheat people.
In
No,
a world, in a world that Liu Kang built to make sure it hates him, I don't know.
well, Liu Kang just sets the stage as far as like, okay, this person is going to have power, this person won't have power. But what they do with their lives, he mentions, is completely up to them. Like, he doesn't control their decisions. So the fact that he didn't go into, I don't know, Baraka was a merchant. Like, why couldn't Shang Tsung do the same thing?
Baraka was still plagued with a horrible disease.
What happened?
And he had to. Baraka was still plagued with a horrible disease in Liu Kang's world.
He was, but like he said, he didn't anticipate the that Tarkot would be a thing because he doesn't control every single thing that happens. He just kind of sets the stage for something to happen. He either
I
sets
get
the
that, I
stage
guess.
that someone will be a great sorcerer or someone won't be a great sorcerer or someone will be born into this family or
If that
won't be
was,
born into this family.
and that's my point. If that's true, then he would have recreated everybody without influencing anything and just watch what would happen. He would just wipe their
Well,
memory,
technically
create
that's what he
them,
did.
and then see. No.
He
I mean,
he
do you call fusing Havoc with Dairu not manipulating how he's going to work his decisions in life?
well, it definitely colors his decisions, right? But he's not making him join Quan
Okay.
Chi or making him
No.
want to rebel or take over a government or like he's not making them do these things.
No, but he definitely wanted to make him be a certain way.
Yeah,
And that's why I think we were both right. Yeah. Because they still have free will, obviously.
yeah,
But
they still have free will. They can decide what they want to do if they're going to be a good person or a bad person.
just saying that the writers could have made it to where Liu Kang definitely, with his clean slate, would have actually been a little bit more of a flawed god situation. Because it is really cool. Um, and I don't know, man. It would have been a better story than what we got.
I dig it.
I mean,
I
it's
dig the
obviously
flawed god. Who?
I mean, it's obviously it's an opinion, right? But Liu Kang was new at this. He was even worried when Raiden gave him that power. He was like, "Are you sure? Like, that I can do this. And he was like, I'll be here with you until you're done. Right. But like Raiden also was flawed. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's room for error for Liu Kang to make. I'm not saying he's going to be an outright dick, or an outright like monster, but he definitely should have learned that he shouldn't have meddled as hard as he did. There's consequences to doing that, and he should have suffered a little more for it because he, out of everybody, doesn't have much go wrong. Honestly, he's always so calm and collected, and he fixes everything and everything's fine.
I
He's
mean,
like, oh, that's unexpected, but whatever.
to be
You know.
fair, his new era was pretty peaceful if you compare it to the similar time for like other timelines.
But
Um,
he's also the person that didn't anticipate that he broke time. So
yeah, he,
when
he
he
had little
actually did,
choice. He kind of had to. The Chronica
yeah,
started everything over from the beginning. Corey says Liu Kang should have gave Shang Tsung a loving mom and dad. I mean
that
that,
would have actually, yeah, there you go.
but who's to say that he didn't have a loving mom and dad?
Well, that's up to speculation for sure.
It,
But I feel like how Liu Kang feels about him, right? He probably didn't.
maybe,
Yeah,
maybe. I mean, I feel like he tried to give people the chance to be good. So like he gave Shao Kahn a good family. Like Shao, oh, I keep calling him Shao Kahn, General Shao, but he gave Shao a family that loved and supported him, and there's a lot of dialogue that shows that they nurtured Shao, and they were in his life. The only thing that he did was make him super weak. Like he made him a sickly child, but but he gave Shao a great family, and he still turned out to be a punk.
I encourage you to rewatch the promo trailer for the game before it released. If you pay attention, Liu Kang sounds like a very biased god that would murder you if you dare change his paradise. You know,
Maybe I'm not
and like,
denying that. I'm not denying that. But what I'm
and
saying
I
is
just
he did give them a chance to have a peaceful life.
with Shao, sure, speculatively maybe, yeah. More often, probably you're right. Yeah, I agree with that. But I think it's a mistake for Liu Kang to even let Shao exist again. Um, because honestly, out of all the biased stuff he did, he probably should have just deleted Shao. I really didn't expect him to be in the game. Um, because he should have known better. Shao in any realm, any timeline, any universe will still be Shao. Um, Shang Tsung, I actually think he's more of a redeemable character, especially if he had a reset where he had a clean slate
You feel
and was given a
Shang
better
Tsung is
home.
more redeemable?
Yes,
Why is that?
yeah, he's human.
Okay.
He is a person at the end of the day. People are very capable of it, with the right environment, being like great people. And Shang Tsung, in some cases, like Conquest, he actually was going to be Mortal Kombat's champion. Um, he was going to be a hero to Earthrealm in some continuities. So it's not unthinkable. I
I
mean, there's
mean, but
even a
he's fallen in every time though. Like every even if he was going
and this
to,
would have and this would have been a time where he could have been fine, but we
maybe
won't know that now.
we don't know.
You know, yeah, we won't ever know because Luke Kang still made sure that his life kind of blew. Like,
I mean, unless we find out later that Shang actually had a great parents and a great childhood and you know like just
I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will, but that's because they like to just kind of keep characters the way they are. At the end of the day, what they could have done, this or that, they inevitably were just going to write them almost entirely the same. I mean, realistically.
uh support says he can't delete Shao Kahn or the other villains from existence. MK11 already established that it's impossible for the Keeper of Time to permanently get rid of someone. Is that a thing? I don't think that's a
I
thing.
mean, if he
I
can
think he
change you
can
into a
delete.
woman,
I think he can delete
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
If he remade the universe from Adam, yeah, he can
I
make sure
mean,
you don't exist.
technically he deleted why does the name escape me? Who he merged with Havoc.
Daru.
Dairu, there we go. Technically he's kind of deleted.
Yeah.
So I mean, I
Um.
don't see why he could. Well, he does mention someone. I think it's in pre-match dialogue. Someone asks, "Why do you even why did you even uh, allow me to live or something like that?" And he's like, "I wanted you to make better choices and live peacefully, something like that." Or I think it's like Shao or someone asks him like, "Why did you even create me?"
Right, and it still alludes to the fact he couldn't. He definitely could have not have. You
Right. He
know.
he he could have not done it, but I think he did create them because he hopefully set them up to be better people, and hopefully they would have been better people. Was his
Right.
hope anyway.
Also, I have another contradictory yet interesting statement, an opinion. Um, I think that Raiden shouldn't have existed, but hear me out. Hear me out. Raiden existing again, okay, undermines Kung Lao. Liu Kang Kung Lao in his perfect world. He still second fiddled him with Raiden because he has a bias for Raiden because Raiden was his mentor, right? So he wanted Raiden to have the most comfortable time in being champion, even. Like, he definitely groomed Raiden to be a warrior, just like Kung Lao, and Kung Lao becomes like second fiddle to him, just like he was Liu Kang. Okay? I think Raiden should have just been left alone and was able to rest in peace finally. He's been through a lot, okay? I mean, at the end of 11, he was tired. It's why he wanted to give him the godhood. He was like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm giving it to someone else. Like, Raiden was passing the torch.
Hmm.
And I think that was his version of being like, I want to retire. I don't want to be, like, in charge. I don't want to do this anymore. Right? So Liu Kang selfishly recreating him just to put him in the brunt of everything again, I think is a mistake. Because not only does it not let Raiden actually rest, but I mean, Kung Lao doesn't shine at all, really, because there's still a better champion, dude. Like, if there was just Kung Lao, like it showed the end of 11, right? Kung Lao would have been champion, and he finally would have been the hero he deserves to be.
You mean the great Kung Lao or the Kung Lao we know?
Just both. Just Kung Lao, man. Like, think about it. Did Liu Kang really need Raiden? I mean, you got Kung Lao, buddy. And he's just as good.
Well, I
He
mean,
could have won the.
so first and foremost, there is no Mortal Kombat tournament in MK1, so he doesn't need any of them. So that like
Sure.
he didn't need any of them. We can assume that he trained Kung Lao, and Kung Lao was a great warrior because, or the great Kung Lao, because regular Kung Lao in MK1 speaks of him, speaks of his ancestor. So clearly, Kung Lao was a boss, the great Kung Lao. Um, and again, maybe he just created Raiden, but didn't anticipate Raiden would get into martial arts and become friends with Kung Lao and did the things that he
I mean,
did.
Raiden still ended up in the same shoes as Liu Kang as
He
a
did.
mirror to what Liu Kang used to be.
He did.
And I just think that's a mistake for Kung Lao because a lot of Kung Lao fans wish Kung Lao would just finally be in the spotlight, and that would have been the perfect time. You know?
Those people need to wake up. Those people need to need to put some put some coffee in their cup. 'Cause,
That's funny.
um,
Did you see
hold
my
on a
point
second.
though, right? My opinion.
I see it. I don't know if I mean Kung Lao being the hero. I mean, I'd be down to see it.
Yeah, why not? Just like
Um,
his ancestor, finally. We
I
only see it in latter endings now.
even though I feel like Raiden it was groomed to be the hero, and he wasn't the hero in this. Like I felt like MK1 was gonna be Raiden's story, and it wasn't.
Yeah, because
Um,
like you could see it, right? Liu Kang's bias with that and how it was setting up. Yeah, exactly. And I just think that's not a thing. It should have been Kung Lao.
Corey says, "Imagine what a world created by Johnny Cage would look like." You mean if Johnny Cage was
It
a
exists.
god?
It exists actually.
We mean it
So
exists.
MK1 alludes to the fact that because of Kronika's defeat, it splintered everything, right? And
Okay.
all of the original cast from MK11, and this is actually not speculation, this is very true,
Uh huh.
okay? I can point out how it's true in a minute. That every person in that roster technically became God of Time in their own timeline.
All right.
Everything splintered from Kronika's death forward, and everyone was in the same position as Liu Kang, and everyone made their own reality the same, like, but in their own way.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Liu Kang meets up with the other gods of time, it's actually them. Because he's like, "Wait, are you my Katana?" And she's like, "Yes."
Yeah.
And it's Raiden's old, and it's his Raiden, but it's all splintered other timeline versions of the MK11 timeline.
Okay.
They all got divided by an entire timeline multiverse, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there should be, in theory, because Johnny Cage was in MK11, him defeating Kronika and getting his own universe. So that definitely is canon. Just as valid as the people it showed in MK1 explaining that they created their own realms and stuff. You know?
Oh, right, right. It does exist. We just haven't seen it. I guess Corey is just saying what it would look like. What does um
Oh yeah.
hold on. He's saying Johnny Cage would make Sonya Blade in his universe be an OnlyFans model. Why? Why wouldn't he why wouldn't he just want Sonya to be his wife the way he wanted in 11?
Okay. What if Johnny made sure that Sonya's brother was still alive, or her father, whoever she used to talk about that was dead? Um, there was like an arcade ending at some point where she was like reminiscing on like the spirit of like her brother or her dead father. I
Her
can't
dad,
remember.
yeah, and MK9.
Yeah, yeah. Like, what if like he made sure that he lived? And I get the point. Yeah, that's a really cool concept to think about because like I'm pretty sure he probably did. Um, yeah. I wonder if he still got with her. Do you think it's morally wrong to make sure you still end up together if like she don't technically isn't the same one
I mean, if you make the
and doesn't know?
rules, it's
I guess. That's like kind of like isn't that kind of like getting with your own creation though, like your own kid, like because if you think
mm,
about it, Liu Kang didn't get with Kitana. In fact, he made sure he didn't.
yeah, yeah, he was very professional with Kitana from
Yeah,
his
and it was
timeline.
very and it was very depressing when he realized that his actual love was also in the same boat, and they were wondering why they just can't be together, why they have to be separated via multiverse. That was a very sad moment again. But
Yeah.
yeah, so like I feel like that would also be morally wrong because like that's kind of like some Alabama stuff technically, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on what Liu Kang, how he considers everyone in the world, but like in the realms. But
Isn't he
yeah, that
technically
right? Like, is
the
he?
father-in-law,
Yeah, that's
the
kind of
all-father like
creepy.
Zeus?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that makes sense. But anyway, this was a really cool conversation. I am gonna cut it here because I do have some other work to do, and I work early, so I'm gonna cut
What a
cut the.
wild time to cut that off at.
I only anticipated going for an hour, but the conversation was so good. I just kind of didn't stop. But I would definitely love to do this again if you're ever available. And like I said, I kind of want to do this with a rotating cast. So if anyone else wants to join the stream, maybe we have more than two people. Maybe it's three or even four. Corey or support or any of you guys, if you guys want to join, I'm more than open to something like that happening. But Jay, and you know what? I didn't even. That's how rude of me. Absolutely no class. I didn't even introduce you. So, Jay, do you have a channel? Do you make content? And if so, where can people find you?
I do make content. When it comes to certain platforms, it's different. So, but mostly it should be the Nerd Nexus or the official Nerd Nexus.
Okay, I'll put a link in the
or
description.
that, or J Dragonheart. Yeah, it won't be hard to find me on platforms. It's usually one or the other.
Okay, very nice, very nice. So the Nerd Nexus or Jay Dragonheart. So definitely check him out. And yeah, I'm gonna call it for tonight. Jay, thank you so much for joining me, and the conversation was dope. I want to do it again.
For sure. For sure. I loved it.
All right, awesome. Well, thank you. Thanks for everyone who stopped by and said something. I know I didn't focus on the chat as diligently as I normally do, but I'll get better at balancing everything. But Jay, thank you again. Everyone, thanks for stopping in, and I hope you guys have a great rest of your night.